This tape is copy protect encoded. Attempts to duplicate will damage this tape and may damage the heads on your VCR. Copy protect may cause the picture on your television to roll. To correct, adjust the tracking on your VCR. The FBI enforces criminal copyright infringement laws.
Stay tuned for the latest in swimming and diving instruction. Available now from Championship Productions, a complete learning library of video instruction featuring the top collegiate coaches in America. Complete instruction on techniques, training, and drills for all strokes. Get the latest on starts, turns, coaching, and strength training. Comprehensive instruction on diving form, drills, dry land training, and conditioning. Total swimming and diving instruction. For a free catalog, call 1-800-873-2730 or log on to www.champonline.com. Championship Productions. Quality products and service since 1976.
Hi, my name is David Marsh. I'm the head swimming coach at Auburn University. And in this video, we're going to show you the backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, and freestyle start. If you think about this video, what we're going to work on is the freestyle start, the butterfly start, the breaststroke start, and finally the backstroke start. All three, the focus will be not only how we leave the block, but entry and breakout. So let's get started. Let's dive in. And to begin today, I've called in our greatest champion of all time, Rowdy Gaines, to kind of lead us off. Rowdy won the Olympic gold medal in 1984 in the 100 freestyle, much because of his start in the 100 freestyle, where he beat the field by probably a good half body length. So I wanted to introduce Rowdy Gaines and let him begin this video.
Well, David, you know, it's funny because if anything that Auburn has had a history of, it's great starts. It's something that we've always strived for perfection. It's not something just in the water we work on. We've always tried to work on starts and turns. And I think when you think about starts, it's something that's so easy to strive to perfect because you have to understand there's no way you're going to swim faster than when you initially leave those blocks. It's very similar to the turn. There's no way you're going to swim faster than when you push off that wall. So you want to try to get a nice, clean, quick, explosive start. That's what you have to start thinking about. While you're on the blocks, the key is to relax. I've always found the more relaxed I am on the blocks as I step up, when the starter calls you to step up, I've always found when I'm more relaxed, I'm more focused. Those things go hand in hand, relaxation and focus. And that's one of the great things about the Auburn Sprint program over the last few years, is when you watch them step on the blocks, you see so much concentration at hand. When I get up on the blocks, relaxed, focused throughout the whole process of starting, not just when you're standing there, but also throughout the whole process of take your mark and go. What you're concentrating on is whether it's the beep or the light. Whatever you can see or hear first is what you're initializing your focus on. The next most important thing is the initial start into the water. You have to understand that the more explosive, the more quick you are going into the water, the more explosive you are coming out of the water on your breakout point. The breakout swim is very important because that first initial stroke you take sets up your momentum for that entire length, whether it be a 25 or a 50. So the cleaner you are on your entry, the cleaner you are going to be on your breakout. And those things are not something that you can really learn technically so much as it is here, mentally and imagining it, imagery. It's very important in the start.
And even in race strategy, when you think of a 50 freestyle or any event, even the mile, getting way ahead, the first 25, has a psychological advantage in when you race your opponents. Important for any swimmer, before they get ready for a race, they want to go through a pre-race routine. Most swimmers will adjust their goggles, adjust their caps and suits. In a routine, typically they'll do that routine every time before big races. How you step up on the blocks, position your feet initially on the blocks, just getting comfortable on the blocks. As Rita comes down to take her mark, you can see she's positioned evenly, and then fires off, enters clean, and off she goes. The start for a swimming race is a critical point for all competitors. It sets not only the position in the race immediately, it also sets the attitude of the race. If you can get a little lead in the start, if you can get out a little bit easier on a start, if you can be more efficient on the start, it all works in your advantage as a competitor. One of the other effects of the start that can be very positive is just the different ways that you can use transition into your breakout. A start isn't just jumping in the water, the initial entry. A start involves the entire process of an attitude of getting on the blocks, the actual execution of the start, and then the ability to move to the surface and start swimming efficiently and effectively without slipping water and making that kind of transition. So it's a whole process that involves a lot of preparation, a lot of work, and over time can be developed to be a very effective tool and efficient strategic part of your race to set the tone for highly successful accomplishments. At Auburn, we've been very proud to have some of the best starters over the course of the years, but each of them, like Bill Pilzik and the others, have developed that by repetition of working at the start, breaking it down, being innovative, finding ways for themselves to develop a faster start, putting a time on their swims, and ultimately transitioning into developing what we consider an Auburn start, which really in essence means a fast start. To introduce the dive progression, Aaron's going to demonstrate 10 steps that we have to get to the ideal start. Now, on all 4 starts, you can make similar progressions. This is the freestyle progression, and this is Aaron, a sprint freestyler, who will be demonstrating for us. Aaron, start with just the jump. Landing as streamlined as possible as he hits the water, but going for maximum height. Okay, the second drill is the tuck jump, and what we're looking for here is ideal athleticism and getting as high as possible, tucking in the air into a tight ball, then going in streamlined. Okay, on pike jump, what we're looking for, again, as high as hip as possible, but I want the body to be in 2 units, basically broke at the hip, to where the hands and the toes meet out in front and go straight in. It's just for coordination in the air. Good job. Okay, the next step we'll go to a tuck dive. We want to get as high, now we're looking for as high a hip position as possible not just overall body. So our goal is to get off the blocks as high as possible, get in a tight ball, and then go more or less straight down and curl back under. And again, be sure the only time to do this is in deep water pool. Yeah, the next step is the jackknife dive, and what we're looking for here is actually for the swimmer, instead of tucking, now we want to go touch the toes in air and still be able to keep the hips high enough to go in. Looking for coordination in the air. Divers develop it all the time, but swimmers have to work at this. And the jackknife dive will allow them to think about keeping the body in 2 units again, but still trying to get in the water clean. Very good. Okay, we're halfway through the progression now, and I want to take a moment to emphasize that these skills didn't come easily to Aaron. It's something he's worked at over time, the coordination in the air, the timing, those kind of things. You've got to work at that. So it's a matter of repetitions, and quality repetitions probably more so than just the number you do. Have somebody who knows what they're looking at watch as the athlete does this, and they'll develop the skills of coordination in the air. Okay, the next is the pike dive, which all we're working on is high hip position, and now taking it, instead of touching the toes like the jackknife, into just a realistic dive into the water in a great streamline. Trying to enter the water in 1 hole. On the 7th step, we're going to try to keep the hips extra high, but still get in clean and deep. So the motion is more like a hose going in the water, and you want to stay real clean on the entry, no awkward up or down movements, and then just maintain a glide position till you come to a complete stop. Gliding out as far as you can till he comes to a stop. That's about 15 meters. The next step, we're going to transition from all the drills so far have been all emphasis on height. Now we're going to emphasize just smooth dive into the water, and height isn't really the key. There's a combination between height and distance. Aaron's going to swing start this time to involve a little bit more of the body coordination, also to allow him to get out further. So we're going to try to take that motion and smoothly bring it out, and again glide until you come to a complete stop, just to see how far you're getting out. Should get out a little further, and he did. Next, we're going to go to the grab start with a glide and a smooth transition again. We're not going to change anything in the water, but we're going to change what he's doing on the blocks. At Auburn, all of our top sprinters do grab starts and track starts. Aaron, will you demonstrate the position for track start? Toes over the edge, knuckles over the edge, balanced position side to side and front and back. From this position, he's sturdy, and there shouldn't be any problem with false starts. Take your mark, go. And finally, we're going to do the grab start through the whole transition and breakout. Now, what Aaron's going to try to do is not only get into the water quickly and efficiently, but hold a tight streamline under the water. And as he transitions to come up to the surface, he's going to keep his head position rather low. What you don't want to do is, as you break the surface, lift the head, lift the chest, and slow yourself down. We want to stay as streamlined as we can, maintaining the speed from the dive through the first stroke cycle. Take your mark. Go. There's Aaron Charlotte doing a 25 fast. Breakout was 2.9, about right, and his tempo is 0.93, 0.97. Time for the 25 was 10.5. On the breaststroke dive, there are two main differences really than the freestyle dive. Many people use the 2-foot up start for breaststroke. We still stay with a track start. The biggest difference is your height, both out of the water and then your depth in the water. In a freestyle dive, you tend to be more straight line going in. Breaststroke, there's more angles involved because you want to be deeper, and you can maximize your pull-out by setting yourself up a little bit deeper. Anamika is going to demonstrate the breaststroke dive. Hold the streamline, press through, and the breakout. The backstroke start is the one start that's quite a bit different than the forward starts. It does require several different skills. The main drill that we use to set up the start is a drill that we call the butt plop, which gets your feet up out of the water and get to work on the distance off of the start. Scott Tucker is going to demonstrate the butt plop. In talking through the backstroke start, what we're looking for is once the hands are firmly gripped on the blocks, the positioning is at a 90-degree angle between the calf and the quad. Okay, we don't want them curled up because it's going to tend to cause your feet to slip. If you are having slippage problems, try splitting your feet a little bit. Sometimes that helps with the push-off. But with the new sticky pads that a lot of meets have now, usually not a problem with feet slipping. What you want to do is, when the command, take your mark, you pull yourself up about 3/4 of the way. And when you hear the beep or go, you push with your hands, lunge with your shoulders, and jump back with your waist, back into one motion. Your hands come around the side. They don't come over the top. Okay, coming around the side will also allow you to stay a little bit more flat. Coming over the top will send your feet down more likely. It's done lots of ways and by a lot of different backstrokers, but here's the way we do it at Auburn. Scott Tucker will demonstrate that. We're going to look at Scott's positioning, toes below the surface. And as you pull up on take your mark command, we're looking for a 90-degree angle. Scott, show them how sometimes a mistake is made to put your rear end against your calves. Don't want to be in this position. That's going to tend to cause your feet to slip again. We're looking for the most powerful athletic position, and the way you do that is by jumping from here, not from here. So Scott, as you do your start, we're going to look for Scott, his jumping position, how he clears the water, his toes don't drag through the water. Take your mark. Go. The best backstrokers, backstroke specialists, will break out at about 15 meters. Very important that you use your dolphin kick, maximize that time on that start. Like we discussed earlier in the video, at the time you're hitting the water, going in for the first initial plunge in the water, that's the fastest you're traveling the whole lap. The goal is to maintain that speed for as long a distance as you can. And since you're allowed to go 15 meters, and that's shown to be faster, then you should stay down for 15 meters. Don't worry if initially you're not as fast at that. Keep working at it. The underwater kicks do come quickly, and as you see on the butterfly and backstroke demonstrations, developing that even balanced kick is really one of the keys. The other key on the breakout is that as you're breaking through your stroke, you initiate the pull with one hand, but don't wait to break the surface to start the other hand. You should actually be in about this position when you break the surface of the water with your head. So you, in essence, you get a little momentum right as you rise to the surface. And once again, once you do start swimming, set the tempo for the race on the first cycle after the breakout. Okay, what we're trying to accomplish with a runner is to carry the momentum from the dive into the water. So Matt's going to do a shallower than normal dive. When he hits the water, he's going to come right up, hit 3 cycles at full speed, and try to transfer the momentum from his dive into his swimming. Give it a shot, Matt. Maintain that speed from the dive, 3 cycles, excellent. The underwater portion of the runners, you can see as the swimmer dives in the water, they hold the line, don't go too deep, and then they break to the surface with full speed, carrying the momentum for 3 cycles. This helps to teach him how to rise back to the surface. Shows an excellent view of Brock going his runner into butterfly stroke and allowing him to get a sense of what is too deep, what is too shallow, and especially how to break to the surface at a speed that's very, very hard to generate just by pushing off the wall. All the while, the other, of course, effective portion is just to set up that first stroke coming out of the start, which should be a stroke that's very efficient, very forward-oriented, and not much extra time spent on going sides at all. This is a side view of doing just jumps as you enter the water. You want to enter straight in and not let there be any motion to the side. If you end up at a different spot on the bottom than you started, that means your angle is off, and you want to work on just developing the athleticism moving through the water. We take for granted that our ability on land that we spend so much time with, but the ability to just have slight movements, the nuances of those movements under the water affect greatly the way you move through the water. The efficiency of the dives there as she's going through is getting better even in this progression. That's a hands first entry, diving, and again you'll see straight movement through the angle of the camera. Much like a diver off the diving boards who spends hours and hours of doing this, it's important for setting up the stroke that you learn how to move through the water deep first, and then you bring it up in more and more shallow. One of our greatest stories at Auburn University has been the development of Bill Filzik through his career. Bill came in as in essence, walk-on swimmer, developed into a world champion, being the first swimmer to have beat Alexander Popov when Popov was at the top of his game. It happened at the 1998 World Championships in Australia in the 50 freestyle. A great deal of the reason that Bill was able to beat Alexander Popov and over the years has excelled in the sprint freestyles is because of the start technique that he has taught himself and has worked at with his teammates, Dean Hutchinson and many other swimmers over the course of his career. Of course, Bill's going on to teach his technique to many other people, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to him right now to have him explain some of the things he thinks about as he goes through preparation and performance of his start.
I think the most important thing in a start is your flexibility. A lot of people have really tight hamstrings, and they're not able to bend over comfortably and be really physically at ease when they're on top of the blocks. Something I work on a lot when I'm just sitting around watching television or something is my hamstring flexibility. I got to the point where I could put my chest straight under my knees with both my legs straight out in front of me. And that's really important for a start, because when you bend over at the blocks to take your mark, you want to be really comfortable and you want to be able to spring out of that position. If you have your muscles tense and tight and they're contracting, when the signal goes off, you're already going to be flexing and you're not going to get as powerful as a start as you possibly could have had you been able to bend in the cross position, relaxed and ready to spring. A muscle that's not contracted will be able to have more power than a muscle that is being contracted. A muscle that is being contracted and being used at a time is going to be a much weaker muscle than a relaxed muscle ready to spring into action. So the main thing I do pre even getting on the blocks is to ensure my flexibility. Without good flexibility, a start is pretty much over before it's begun. You have to have the flexibility in order to get in the proper position on the blocks. When I get on the blocks, what I've done to incorporate my start into a world-class start is being able to use my hands as well as my legs to drive off the blocks. When I do a start, I use my arms kind of like a third and fourth leg. You got to have a really, really tight grip onto the block, but only with your hands. Your arms are kind of loose because, like I said, having a tight muscle is going to be a little bit slower. So I have a really good grip onto the blocks, and I actually pull the blocks as hard as I possibly can. If a block is not bolted down properly, I will pull the block up. I've actually broken a block in the international circuit because they have kind of flimsy blocks, and at the strength that I pull onto the blocks to get my initiating power off of my start, I actually broke the top of a block off and I had to replace the entire block. I'm actually a really skinny individual and I don't have a very high vertical jump. My vertical jump is only about 30 inches, which is about average for an athlete. And I'm not real muscular. Like, we have people we were showing on the video, like Aaron Charla, who's a muscular sprinter. I'm more of a leaner, taller individual. So to be able to use my hands on the blocks as an extra leg will make me equal to the power that Aaron has in just his legs. The smaller you are, the more tactics you have to find to develop as much power as you possibly can off of those blocks. You can get a lot of initial pull with your arms to complement your leg push. To do that, I use the track start, which is the only start we teach at Auburn University. The track start's beneficial in that your center of gravity is a little bit further back between your two legs, whereas when you're doing the 2-foot up start, your center of gravity is directly over your feet, and so there's no real way to get yourself moving forward. So if you place your dominant foot forward or back, I place my dominant foot back in a track start, and I push with my dominant foot back. Now, since my center of gravity is over the middle between my two legs, I can now use my arms and my back leg to push me forward and propel me. And I leave my hands on the blocks the entire time until I've leaned over the water so far that they come off on their own. So at one point in the air during a start, both my hands are at my sides. And the reason I do that is to get more power. And that's really the key to a start, is to get as much power as you possibly can to hit the water at the fastest speed possible. I'm not nearly the fastest swimmer out there. There's swimmers who can crush me in the water, but I can generally put a lead on almost any swimmer in the world just because of my start. If you can work on your start and put a half body length on somebody even before you hit the water and start swimming, they have to work even harder once they hit the water to catch up to where you are already. For someone like me who swims a better 25 than a 50 and a better 15-meter than a 25, it helps to have a half body length lead, or more in some cases, on somebody in a race, because that makes them have to work hard to catch me in swimming. And without even working on swimming, I'm already ahead. I have to do no extra training in the water. I don't have to put any more yards in. just solely having a good solid start can give you up to half of a second lead on somebody, and that therefore decrease your time for any event. A lot of distance swimmers don't really care about their start, but I've seen some distance swimmers even in the mile lose by less than a half of a second, and that just can come back to a simple start. My feet placement for a track start is about one of my own feet length apart. If you have gigantic blocks, like a lot of championship facilities have, there's a tendency for people to put their feet way too far back. I've seen children put their feet as far back as mine are, and their feet are maybe 5 inches long, and I have much bigger feet than them. And for them to put their feet as far apart as my feet, it makes them look kind of silly up on the block with their feet gigantically over-exaggerated compared to what I would look like up on the starting blocks. So a good rule of thumb for foot placement is to put your feet about one of your own feet lengths apart. So if I have, say, 10-inch feet, then I'll have my front foot on the front of the block, and my back big toe will be 10 inches back from my front heel. So there's about a 10-inch gap between my 2 feet. You also want to make sure that your feet are shoulder width apart. If you think about it, if you're just standing around doing jumps, the most powerful jump you can get is with your feet about shoulder width apart. If you put your feet really close together, your knees kind of hit each other, and it takes a little bit of power. With your feet shoulder width apart, you can get a lot more power out of your jump, and increasing your jump helps during a start. So when I bend over, there's 2 schools of thought. You can lean really far forward once you take your mark, or we can lean really far back, and that's just going to place your center of gravity in different places. To lean really far forward means that you're not going to get as much push off of your back foot. You will react faster because you're further forward, but you're going to substitute the amount of power that you can get out of your feet and your arms by leaning far forward on the blocks. So I tend to lean not really too far back, because if you lean really far back, then you have way too much weight on your back leg, and your arms are going to be stressed a lot more. So when they say go, you're going to have to do almost a full squat with one leg and just your arms to pull yourself forward. So you're going to be losing a lot of reaction time that you could gain by putting your weight a little bit further forward. I tend to put my center of gravity right about in the middle of there. So I lean as far forward as I possibly can, and I rock back until I feel equal pressure on both of my legs. That way, when my arms add in, I have a full 2-footed jump, because my arms count as almost one of my jumps because I pull so hard off the block. And then I push with my back leg, which is my right leg. In the air, you don't want to jump too high, because any motion going up is motion that's not going out. And so I try to stay as flat as humanly possible out in the air and hit the water with as much power and momentum as I possibly can. Where I am in the air, I try to stay as flat as possible. So where my head starts off the start is the highest point my head's going to be. I don't pick it up and jump, because a lot of people tend to think that a high arch is going to help shoot you into a single hole. I can find the same hole staying really low with my body and my chest as people who jump up and try to get a giant pike dive. What you're going to do is when they say go, you're going to pull as hard as you can with your arms, push with your back leg until your weight gets onto your front leg, and you push with your front leg, so it's almost instantaneous, keeping your head and your shoulders low, and you're going to end up throwing your arms a little bit backwards. There's different degrees of throwing depending on how strong your legs are. Since my legs aren't as strong as some people's, I tend to throw my arms completely back because I'm using my arms 100%. Whereas people like when Aaron Charlotte does a start, he just throws his arms about quarter way back because he's really powerful with his legs. So being as skinny as I am, I throw my arms all the way back, and I get all the power I can out of them, keeping real low to the water, and at the last second, I get my hands together, and I pike into the water to get into one clean hold. And so at this moment, I'm now holding as much possible power as my body can develop. And I'm holding that into the water, into a tight streamline, and I break out in about 2.3 seconds. You can time your swimmers on your go to their first hand. So when they go and they break out, so their first stroke hits the water, I'm clocked at about 2.3 at Olympic trials, where my slowest average is about 3.0. And some people who do dolphin kickstand are a bit longer, but that's a good way to measure how much time you're spending underwater. You want to be real consistent with the amount of time that you're spending underwater, so that, say somebody does a dolphin kick underwater, it's not keeping you underwater longer because you see them underwater longer. You want to do your own start every time. You don't want to pay attention to what other people are doing. The fastest you're ever going to go in any swimming event is the time you spend from the blocks until you hit the water. As soon as you hit the water, you're completely decelerating. So you want to be able to hold and maintain as much speed and power off the blocks as you possibly can. To do this, we have a 15-meter pool at Auburn. In our 15-meter pool, we can play with our starts, play with our heights, play with our depths until we find the fastest way to get to 15 meters, which has been key for my 50 meters. It helps you find the fastest possible start. If you have access to 15 meters, or you can even time yourself to 15 meters at your head, that's a good way to find out if you changing your start around is progressing it to a fast start. I hold my speed off of my start, and I'm timed at about 2.3 seconds to my breakout. What I'm doing in that 2.3 seconds is I'm trying to hold as much of the power that I developed off the blocks with my arms and my legs into my first 2 strokes. My first 2 strokes come right at about a little less than 15 meters, and they're the most powerful strokes that I'm going to take the entire race. It's to hold the speed that I just developed off the start, and it's to set a tempo for my race. The first 2 strokes that you take into your race is going to set the tone for the rest of your race. Since you're going to be moving the fastest in the air, I try to keep that power and that speed into my race and try to hold that as long as I possibly can. What I think about before I do a start is I think about reacting off the first sound I hear. If somebody sneezes right after they say take your mark, I'm going to go. All my muscles are twitching slightly to the point where if I hear something, I react immediately. We work on a lot of reaction drills at Auburn. We do things where we put a cup between 2 people with our hands on our sides bent over, and they say go, and we try to grab the cup off the ground. Just quick reactions. We do hand slap drills, stuff like that. It's kind of an anticipation, but it's a controlled anticipation that we learn to develop. I clear my mind completely when I get on the blocks, and I'm only listening for 2 words, some kind of take your mark, and then a signal to go. In some countries, they don't speak English, and you just listen for the first words you hear up on the blocks, and then that's all you're thinking about. You're waiting for the command to take your mark, and then go. You shouldn't be thinking about how you're going to swim the race. The start is the only thing you should think of. You should try to beat everybody you can off the start. Make them have to catch you in the water, because that's just extra work for them to have to do. It's free time that you get to drop off your total time if you can just work on your start and these small little fundamentals.
Next radar, we're going to use this to practice our dives. What we're going to do is dive through this hole, okay? What this does for you is it allows you, when you dive through a hula hoop, to dive in one hole and create minimum splash, okay? So wherever I toss it, I want you to work on diving through it. Dive right through that. Next, we're going to use the old trusty pole to have Rita dive over it. What this does, it encourages her in a very clear way to stay very high and not let the feet, especially not let the feet drop down. I won't let it hit her. I'll move it out of the way, so there's no fear of this being a dangerous exercise. But you do want to do it with somebody who knows what they're doing. Okay, Rita. You can see that helped to keep her high up out of the water, and she's still able to get in real clean on the entry. Take your mark. Go. Putting together the entire start for races takes that step-by-step progression you've seen on this video. I hope that as you study this video, you learn more and more about how to get out quickly in your races. That's the goal of a great start. Get out ahead of your competitors. Good luck to you, and we'll see you at the blocks.